sir.
Morning.
Thank you very much. 1 second, please.
Oh, this place stinks.
Does it?
Oh yeah, that virus you had was a gift. You...
Close it up. Not just off the road there. Second turning right. I'll be up on the way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This is low on petrol.
I'll make a start. You sort that out.
This thing isn't working.
It's working. John! John! John!
And there's a massive tailback at the Talgarth roundabout. Now onto the latest news headlines. 2 contractors perished today in an incident at Farrow-on-the-Hill. The first died within a confined space. It's thought the second perished attempting to rescue him. And that tailback is all the way back to Junction 12, so expect delays there. And the headlines. Investigators will today begin an inquiry into the deaths of the 2 workers at Farrow-on-the-Hill.
How long have you been with the company?
2 years.
And got promoted. Well done. How many confined space incidents have you dealt with?
Including this one.
Hmm.
1.
You've done your homework then?
A confined space is any place, including any chamber, tank, silo, including open top ones, pit, sewer, well, or other similar space in which, by virtue of its enclosed nature, there is foreseeable risk from a hazard.
What about a room during spray painting?
A confined space,
Manholes?
yes.
Must a confined space be enclosed on all sides?
No. How long have you been doing this?
Too long.
Traffic is moving freely, but avoid Junction 12 as a pile-up has brought things to a complete standstill. Well, now let's take a look at the weather.
What do you think was the cause of this incident?
Well, I don't know. No thanks. Will be straightforward.
Example?
2 years ago, Hull Valley petrol station, the worker was overcome whilst working in a petrol holding tank beneath a garage. What was the hazard?
Fumes.
Very good.
How about an excavation where CO2 is used to freeze pipes? A worker was hospitalised. Why?
Carbon dioxide poisoning.
From what?
The freezing agent.
Okay, a hard one.
3 years ago, 2 workers perished in a disused sewer beneath Kempertown.
Did they have gas detectors?
Not at the time of their deaths.
Oxygen deficiency again.
No.
Naturally occurring biological processes. A disused sewer. As soon as they stepped into it, the hydrogen sulfide levels rose.
I guess we can expect to find two things.
Which are?
Number one, the work that took place in that confined space wasn't properly risk assessed. Because, two, something combined with the confined space to create a hazardous situation. Result? Two bodies. Well, we'll know when we get there.
If we ever get there.
The Confined Spaces regulations require that employers have a duty to prevent employees or contractors from entering or working inside a confined space where it is reasonably practicable to undertake the work without entry. If persons are required to enter, a risk assessment must be undertaken and a safe system of work implemented.
At last. Well, at least they're security conscious.
They are now, yeah.
Meaning what?
Well, this attention to detail could be a case of shutting the barn door.
After the horse has bolted.
Exactly.
How do we know that this employer complied with the regulations? Did he provide adequate training?
Did he carry out a risk assessment?
Risk assessment.
An employer must assess the risks connected with entering or working in a confined space, as well as assessing the different hazards.
The employer should identify the persons at risk. The employer should also abide by any other legislation applicable to that work.
Once the hazards, persons at risk and legislation have been identified,
And assessed.
then a safe system of work can be issued for the work to be undertaken.
Firstly, you should assess the confined space itself.
For what?
Previous contents. Previous contents could indicate which hazards you could expect.
What else?
Residues. Chemicals. Flammable vapours, scale, rust. Methane gas.
What about location?
Like contamination from local works and processes. Or the surrounding soil and strata.
Like Mersham? Acidic rain? Water reacted to the surrounding chalk strata and produced high levels of carbon dioxide. 2 workers were asphyxiated.
You should assess if a sudden rainfall upstream could cause a water surge where the work is being carried out.
One more thing.
The air that we breathe has an oxygen content of 21%. If the oxygen rises to 25% or more, then flammable substances will more readily ignite. If the oxygen level drops below 19%, workers may fall unconscious or die. In short, assess the oxygen level.
Is that my pen? What else should you assess?
Hazards from the work itself. Like chemicals. Those used for cleaning or your spray painters. Or welding. It produces hazardous fumes.
It's also a source of ignition.
Leading to a fire or explosion.
What else should you assess?
Does the confined space need to be isolated to allow work to be carried out safely?
Okay. You've missed one out.
Establish the rescue arrangements. Rescue by the team, making sure they have adequate equipment and training to carry out a rescue. And rescue by emergency services, providing them with accurate information about the incident.
And where might you find this information?
One would hope on the paperwork in the office that issued the safe system of work. It should be a documented procedure. A risk assessment should be carried out by a competent person who can identify hazards such as oxygen deficiencies, toxic or flammable gases, flooding, access and egress, hazardous chemicals or welding fumes. The risk assessment should identify those at risk. It should also take into account any other legislation pertaining to that work. Once the task has been risk assessed, a safe system of work can be drawn up. This documentation checks out. Every element was assessed. The safe system of work was drawn up weeks before the work was carried out.
No work going on around them. There was a communication system.
The atmosphere had been tested. It was being monitored.
No residues. It was completely isolated from the rest of the network.
Safe entry and exit procedures. It all checks out. The air mover was out of fuel, but they found a full can at the site.
Let's go and look at the site.
Gases!
But the gas detectors were working. They were checked.
Think. What was the task?
They were painting. What a horrible place to die.
Check the notes. The gas detector was working. Chances are it was still working when the bodies were found.
That's right. What is it? Do you know what happened?
I think so.
Well,
I think I know what happened. Both are adequately trained. They know what they're doing.
This thing's low on petrol.
Generator for the extractor was low on petrol. So, John starts work and Bill goes to get the petrol.
Right.
Bill doesn't know how low the generator's fuel is. While he's away, it stops. John doesn't know.
but the gas detector.
It was working. It's only designed to detect a limited range of gases.
And not the toxic fumes or vapours from paint.
John! John! By the time Bill gets back, John's already dead. John!
But why did he go in?
Think. What was there to tell him that it wasn't safe to enter?
The gas detector, which wouldn't register the fumes.
Right.
Wait a minute. Surely John would have realised there were fumes building up.
Would he? John should never have been chosen for this job. Remember, correct selection of staff is to be made. Even if they gave him a full medical. It's doubtful they did. After all, they would have checked.
His sense of smell.
God, that's right, I forgot. What was it again?
Virus I had when I was a kid. Can't smell anything.
Cool, you don't know how lucky you are.
It just goes to show what can happen when an employer pays less attention to contractors than he does to his own workforce.
You live and learn. A safe system of work should identify the task, the hazards and risks, methods for reducing the risks, and how the system will be implemented and monitored. the worker should be medically fit and receive adequate information, instruction and training. The safe system of work should list suitable equipment for the task, like gas detectors, ropes, harness, respiratory protection and personal protective equipment, and the methods for communication. The safe system of work should include information on the method of work. Typically, this will include access and egress, adequate ventilation, natural or mechanical, isolation procedures, and specific hazards, including fire and emergency procedures. Account should also be taken for emergency procedures, including sufficient arrangements for the rescue of personnel. All relevant documentation should be included in the safe system of work. These should include all relevant drawings for the work site and, when applicable, a permit to carry out the work. Also, if the weather presents a risk, weather reports should be included. Any equipment used in confined spaces for emergency or rescue purposes should be subject to periodic examination and a record kept.
It's not fair that a family should go through this.
You just missed the most valuable lesson of your first field job.
And what lesson was that, oh wise one?
The real effect of a death in a confined space.